September 1st, 2025, the opening of the academic year. An opening of an academic year like any academic year. 2,000-3,000 new students coming in, the rector giving a speech. But it was very different compared to other years. We had a special guest, the Dutch Minister of Defense, not of Education, not of Economic Affairs, but the Minister of Defense. And Maaike, you're from the Institute of Clingendael. Maaike Okano-Heijmans, welcome. You were also pitching about the geopolitical situation, and to take one statement from you, it was about resilience, of course, in these days. That seems to be important. You could do two things, either build walls, what we see the US doing, or run faster. Can we run fast?
We have to run faster. There's, of course, we need to invest in protecting ourselves, and some of that involves building walls. We've done that with export controls, investment screenings in the past few years, but we're realizing now that building just walls is not going to really secure our societies and our economies. We have to build strength and competitiveness, and that's why we need to invest in ourselves, invest in education.
This region is very strong in open innovation in international relations, and that starts with ASML, which thrives on an international business, doing business all over the world. We have a lot of international students. Can we still sustain that model in a world that is completely changing geopolitically, where it's more or less everyone on his own, or Europe on his own?
Well, there's I think two different things. There's Europe, and can we collaborate more as Europeans? And then there's, of course, the world beyond that. Collaborating with the US, unfortunately, is running into difficulties these days. So welcoming sometimes, also researchers from the US is a very new thing for specific political reasons, of course, if that's why they come. But I think it's needed that we continue openness, continue collaboration with others, and we really have to rethink who are our partners.
So openness is important. In the panel that you have been participating in, I heard a lot about the financial instruments and so on, but I still feel a little bit tension with internationals coming here from countries that are also, let's say, against which we're a bit cautious, so to say. Is that still, let's say, the old world where, as Peter Wendink once said, we need to be relevant? Or is it, as Thierry Breton said, we need to be autonomous and we need to be strong?
I think we need to be both. That's how complicated the world is getting.
We need to be, but is it a conflict? Or?
It can be, yeah. Well, being relevant requires that we invest in ourselves and in collaboration with others. But being autonomous, what does that mean? That we can take care of ourselves, or that we do everything ourselves? I think shutting us off, that would be building walls. That's a sort of autonomy that I don't think we should be advocating for. But being more relevant and being more autonomous, if that means that we need to have that strength ourselves, that's a goal that we all have to achieve and to invest in together.
You're with the Clingendael Institute, watching geopolitical events all across the world. What is your take on Brabant? You already said it used to be the hardware economy, whereas Amsterdam used to be the software, or is it a bit more?
Of course, it's more nuanced than that. Yeah. Of course, a lot of good software is also being built here, but I think in terms of applications in our new digital economy, we use a lot of applications. We book online, we pay online. Those sort of applications, that's the software I was referring to as that is the hub for that is Amsterdam. And
that may be Booking.com.
That's Booking.com, that's Adyen, and all the companies around that also want to know that they have to invest to attract talent together to ensure that this ecosystem can grow. So I'm always very proud, and everybody here should be proud of the talk about Brainport Eindhoven, which is hardware and software of a different kind. But I think we need to think bigger and acknowledge that there's other layers in this technology stack as we now like to unpack it these days, right? Starting from resources that we need to build partnerships with certain countries to be autonomous, making sure that not all resources come, for example, from China, but that we diversify and we get them from elsewhere. Then there's, of course, this hardware layer, software layer, applications layer. We need to be autonomous in all these layers. Brainport Eindhoven is working extremely hard, I think, to contribute to that in specific layers. But let's not forget also those other layers. I know that's a difficult thing to say perhaps here, but I think there's a lot for other ecosystems to learn from Brainport Eindhoven and perhaps a lot to gain from collaborating.
Your portfolio in the Clingendael Institute is geopolitics, technology and digital.
Yes.
I don't want to say that digital is not technology, but apparently you see other aspects than just the hard technology in there. And that may also be the nuances and the subtleties of there is more than the technology.
Yes, and digitalization is a complex term, but I think we need to acknowledge digital governance. Nobody speaks about technology governance. We speak about digital governance, and we speak about digital societies, not about tech societies as such so much. So I think it's important also to educate everybody that a digital society is built on many technologies, but it's not just about the technologies, it's also about how we use them. For example, China chooses to use technologies, to manage technologies, and to survey technologies in different ways than we do. That's more of the digital challenge rather than the tech challenge, I think. So to emphasize that, of course, as a research institute for international relations, we have to do both.
It was a long time ago that I worked in the United States at the university, where we believed that having some kind of handheld infopad, 1993 that was, would change the world because we would have access to the right information anytime, anywhere. That was in the 90s. And
the right information.
Exactly. And of course, the way that society uses technology may be pretty different from how it is perceived in the beginning. Now, and I can imagine that that is also the digital part that you're looking into. How strong is the Netherlands? We have elections coming up. Will it be influenced? Will the thought leaders, is that also part of how you see the geopolitical situation and where, let's say, Dutch government should do more and where regions that provide technology can have a stronger influence?
Cybersecurity challenges, data security challenges are for governments and for companies. Misinformation, disinformation is perhaps more for governments as we approach elections, high on the agenda, but others interfering with our data, trying to get access to our data, trying to manipulate our data, that's a huge challenge that we see throughout societies. Of course, it has been in previous elections, and it will be the case in this election. Let's hope that the problems won't be so big that we notice. Because if you start noticing, then you know it was really bad, and we perhaps didn't manage so well. So if we don't notice, we know that there has been these attempts, but they have been relatively less successful.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the technology to the digital. Then first come, let's say, the protection against the hackers, what AI can do in terms of disinformation, but it also goes to influencers and public opinion and things that are happening. But it almost sounds like you decouple that from what technology companies could do. Would you expect that technology companies can do something against fake news? Or is there a role as well for parties in the Netherlands, in Europe?
Well, this is where European legislation, regulation is forcing technology companies, of course, to take responsibility. The Digital Services Act, and we have an AI Act, Data Act. But I think technology companies can do also more, and ideally also because this is in their best interest also, that we have societies that trust those technologies. Because if we lose trust, then people might start to use less of them. And I think that would be bad news for everybody. So this is what I meant when I refer to geopolitical due diligence, that I hope that companies will take upon themselves to understand the world around them, to understand that their responsibility as a company goes beyond making sure that people have jobs, that economies are running and that we're making profits. Companies now have a bigger responsibility to shape our digital society, and ideally not just because we have rules and regulation forcing them to do so, but hopefully also because they want to make that difference to our societies.
And you see that as a responsibility for companies. There was a nice quote by Koen Janssen, who quoted a former CEO of DSM stating, "No one in this world can claim that he is successful if the world fails." On the other hand, you could also see, is it the responsibility of individual companies? And there, Peter Wenning said some time ago, other companies know very well how to act, to proactively anticipate climate change, a new digital world. So it's more like a future visionary story rather than just repeating what we have been doing. Is that vision enough there in the Netherlands?
With the companies or with the government? There's two different things.
You need both to make it happen, right?
You need both to make it happen. And we at Clingendael contribute to this. We look at three different transitions that we're going through as societies. A green transition, a digital transition, and a geopolitical transition. All three transitions are, for companies and for societies and for governments, we all have a role and a responsibility. And for companies, there's money to be made with each transition. It's not just that, digital regulation, for example, is forced on tech companies and they face challenges. I think if they anticipate and if they co-create with governments their digital societies, there's a lot of money still to be made. The same can go for the green transition. China realized that solar powers, developing strength in solar panels, is a huge opportunity. So they're making huge profits. Why don't we have such companies so much in Europe? Well, of course, also because they're crowded out by the Chinese.
We didn't protect them well enough here in Europe.
So that's the co-creation then, where governments and companies, if they see these challenges coming, if they have more of the strategic conversation between themselves, between each other, then hopefully we can get to better solutions. And the same goes for the geopolitical transition. Governments, speaking for The Hague, I know that economic security is very high on the agenda. How do we protect ourselves against, Trump's tariffs, against China's non-market practices, perhaps India's protectionism, to just name a few of the big countries that we are dealing with in this world. If we can have more of a conversation with companies on what are their concerns, what are their priorities, what are their challenges, maybe we can get to better co-creation of, rather than legislation.
You come from The Hague. Quite often here in Brabant we feel that The Hague is far away and they tell us what to do. Now here's your opportunity after hearing the stories from the mayor here, from the university. Would you have a great tip? Co-creation, you said? Co-creation,
yes. I think it's very inspirational what you're doing here with Brainport Eindhoven. Keep up the good work. I think that's the go that Lex Hoefsloot was calling out for. I very much agree with him on that front.
Maaike Okano-Heijmans, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your stories and your thoughts. And hopefully in this region we can take care of that and get something out of it.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.